Well, let's get some reaction to that from Alp Mehmet, who's the chairman of Migration Watch. Alp, are you convinced?
No, I'm not, frankly.
Why not?
Well, first of all, if you listen to what he's saying, we're going to have an international conference, then see what happens. We're going to ignore the ECHR if it tells us that we can't do something. What will the courts say? Are we going to ignore the courts as well? Frankly, it's no change, really, from what has been said all along, and it will do nothing to dissuade people from jumping into dinghies and making their way across the channel.
OK, so let's break it down. First of all, on dinghies and Rwanda, do you have confidence that Rwanda flights will take off in July?
I gather that everything is ready.
If the Tories win, I should say. They're not going to take off at all if Labour win.
Well, according to the polls, they haven't got a hope in hell's chance. But putting that aside, I don't think that they will. I don't think the courts will let us actually, or let flights take off. But if they did, and if it were happening 2 years ago, then maybe it would discourage people from coming across illegally.
So it had the potential to act as a deterrent. In that regard, what do you make of Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper and others in Labour saying, well, even if it works, we're still going to scrap it?
Well, I find that very difficult to understand, frankly. The only way that it's going to discourage people from coming across illegally, if it actually works, and it does so on a regular basis. And if they're saying now we're going to abandon it anyway, I'm afraid that numbers are simply going to go up.
But there is a promise in this manifesto of a legally binding cap on migration, which is progress, isn't it, Alp, or not?
Well, they've been saying that for a few weeks now, and it was something that Robert Jenrick recommended in a paper that he wrote with Neil O'Brien, the CPS paper. They were saying, yes, we need a cap, and that's absolutely right. We believe that the only way to reduce immigration is to have a cap. But frankly, when you look at what their proposals are, we're going to let Parliament decide. We're going to have Parliament be advised, or we're going to be advised by the Migration Advisory Committee. How long will this all take? It's a cop-out, frankly, to suggest that it's going to be Parliament making their decision on the advice of the Migration Advisory Committee.
If you could put a cap on numbers, what would your cap be?
My cap would be something that means net migration of less than 100,000 and considerably less, preferably. That is the only way that we're going to prevent the explosion in our population that is now taking place. And even if the government were to reduce it to net migration of 350,000, that actually means an increase of 9 million people by the mid-2040s.
Yes. It's interesting that the government is sort of saying, well, we're going to halve immigration, so it comes down to that figure, which I think is the figure that's baked into future projections by the Office for Budget Responsibility. This idea that we should just have 350,000 people coming in here. But, of course, that's from a historic high. Well, so we've gone from the tens of thousands to 350,000, and that being apparently an acceptable figure.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, it isn't acceptable, frankly. And we are at the moment around 750,000, 700,000. That is not going to come down by very much anytime soon. 600,000 net migration a year, that means an increase of 20 million people by the mid-2040s. We just cannot cope with that. How do you integrate people like that? It means an extraordinary change to the makeup of our society. And I'm afraid no political party at the moment is prepared to face that and be realistic about what needs to be done.
Reform has suggested a net zero migration. Is that unrealistic, Alp?
Probably, but I think we should be aiming for that, certainly.
OK. Alp Mehmet, thank you very much indeed for going through those numbers with us.